Okay. So I'm refuting Cassie's speech, who did it on the captivity of orcas, and her main claim was SeaWorld's captivity of orcas is dangerous. She had her secondary claims were the first was that captivity endangers the trainers, that captivity prevents orcas from living up to their full potential, and that captivity misinforms the public. One of the first things she said was that since the captivity of orcas, there's been over 100 incidences of violent, aggression towards trainers and such at SeaWorld parks. However, when I was doing the research, one of the things I found was that there has been about 108 instances, but that's been in over 50 years throughout the world. Only 4 of those were resulting in death, and actually I didn't write down the exact number, but a lot of them, there were actually no injuries. It was just the orca lunged at the trainer. So no one actually got hurt or anything like that. So that's actually not entirely true. And even less than 80 of those 108 happened at a SeaWorld or SeaWorld affiliated park. And then for the second topic she had there, or her sub-claim, was that about 60 to 90% of killer whales in captivity have a collapsed dorsal fin, and that probably the reason that is because they can no longer swim strong for long distances, which causes the fins to weaken as a result. However, the dorsal fins are actually made of collagen, which is a pretty, it's very similar to like ligaments and stuff like that, so it's not very sturdy. And especially one of the things that it was by a former whale trainer, Dr. Astrid Van, I'm going to butcher this name, but it's Ginniken, I guess, says that less than 1% of wild orcas have dorsal fin collapse, but that the main 5 reasons for captive fin collapse are going to be pattern swimming, which is basically them swimming in the tanks one way, so it kind of leans that way with the current. But that they're oftentimes at the surface of the tanks, and the tanks aren't very deep, so there's a warmer temperature on there, which causes it to soften up, allowing it to be more malleable. And then the third one is the warmer temps, which ties into that, and then a little bit of the lower hydration and genetics also play a factor into it as well. But it's not necessarily because they can't swim anymore. That really played no part of it. And then another claim she had was that since the captivity, less than 75% of orcas have lived under 10 years. So really short time span, especially since they're supposed to have an average lifespan of over 30 years for females. However, in the 60s, when they actually started the captivity, the average lifespan for orcas was barely over a year. It was 1 year and 2 months. So I mean, take that into consideration, where they didn't really start getting longer lifespans until 20, 30 years later, really skews the data in one direction. So it's really not a great way to use that kind of information there. But then since 1994, the average lifespan for captive orcas has actually been over 11 years. So we've really, obviously, we're learning about them, and we're able to keep them alive longer, obviously. Which that in itself ties into her third claim, that captivity misinforms the public. And that a lot of people are under the direct impression that captivity is designed to advance the scientific research, when not really a whole lot of it is being done. But given the information I just said, where in just 30 years we've been able to increase their lifespan of captivity, about 1,000%, kind of shows that we're obviously learning something about them when they're in captivity. Otherwise, how would we be able to have that happen? But yeah, so basically that's going to be everything there. So, all right. Wow, it feels like the class is full again. Woo! I brought some. I forgot to hand them out. Actually, one of my buddies did that in high school. He borrowed his dad's hat and went to the grocery store before school. It was when I was in high school. And bought a bag of oranges and a dozen roses. Wore like an old beat up jeans, straw hat, plaid shirt, and just like walk around like this. Bananas. Hey man, you like that?
All right. You follow the structure pretty clearly. You did a good job signposting the advocate's secondary points and summarizing the evidence on their particular points. I thought the strongest response that you had was on the first point, arguing that the significance of the trainer attacks was relatively minor. But you need to have better source citation on this. I read this. I don't remember where it was, and I didn't bring the information. That's not. You can't do that in an argument. You're having this argument, and you're supposed to have researched it, and you need to be able to prove this particular point. Obviously, you researched it. I mean, You had their numbers there. You're presenting statistics. That only 4 of them were fatal. Only 88 were in the SeaWorld parks. So I know you got the information somewhere. I doubt very much that you made that up. So why are you not citing that, and telling us that? That's what you need to do, because that's what we're expecting you to do in the debates. Yeah. You should be able to provide that information. On the argument about the dorsal fin, I thought that you did an okay job kind of explaining it in the different theories that are going into it. What I think you need to do is contrast why your theories address the underlying issue that the advocate is presenting. The underlying issue the advocate is presenting is this is something that's unusual, it's weird, it's something that's bad for the orcas in some way. There's some problem with this. Well, it occurs for a natural reason. It's just collagen, so it doesn't have anything to do with, it's not like they're depressed and so their dorsal fin, it isn't erect or something like that, It's not a cycle, they're not, psychologically deprived in captivity, and that's why their dorsals bend over like this. It's just one of those conditions of being in the situation that they're in. But does it harm them in any way? And that's ultimately, I think, the inference that the advocate is making is, and you've kind of, skirted over that. Now, they may not have made the claim directly either. But remember, you have to be thinking about the audience too, and why would anybody care whether or not their dorsal fin was up or down? It's because they think there's something wrong with the animal because of that. So the ultimate argument that you want to be making is there's nothing wrong with the animal. It's just a result of the way in which they're swimming in this particular situation and the heat situation that they're in at the temperatures that they're swimming at. So you get a different circumstance because they're in a different place. But it doesn't hurt them in any way. It doesn't have any negative consequence to them. It's not like the other orcas make fun of them about their dorsal fin or something like that. So you need to tell us why those arguments are important. And I felt a little bit like you left that out. And then on the lifespan issue, I thought you had a good strategy to start with. Yeah, we got to get out of here in just a second. I thought you had a good strategy to start with by arguing, look, the first orcas that we had very short lifespans, and then the follow-up would be, and that's why the averages are so low, because when they first started doing this, if you include that in the average lifespan, that's going to change it. But now orcas are living much longer, so the average lifespans would probably be longer. The fact that it's 10 years, you're basically arguing it's gone up. Well, that's a good thing. They are getting better. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's still pretty close to what the advocate was saying. It's 20 years less than they get in the wild. There might be a good argument that says, look, we are learning, and you make that argument, we are learning something about how to increase their lifespan in activity. Not hunting them. And that's the other thing you could say, and there are trade-offs. We make those trade-offs, but the truth of the matter is that the average lifespan means you're talking about all of the orcas out there. Yeah. There are plenty of orcas that are going to have a shorter lifespan than they would have in captivity because they are in dangerous conditions. So it's a little bit hard to make that comparison. Maybe find some way to diminish that argument. Okay. All right. Thank you.